we finally come to Midas by Wunderhorse. And Karl, this was your selection, so you're gonna kick us off here.
Yeah, so this was one that I picked because A, it fitted the mostly, Taco aside, mostly alt rock lineup that we had this month, and B, Fontaines had already been taken. So Wonder Horse, I actually discovered through supporting Fontaines DC. So another reason I thought they'd be a good fit for this month. And they've blown up really quickly since then. Had a solid debut record with Cub. Have since then they headlined Dot to Dot here in Nottingham back in May, and they've gone from, our neck of the woods anyway, selling out the Bodega, which is like our 250 cap venue in 2022, to now they've just sold out Rock City in 2024. So no time at all. Huge momentum behind them. And yeah, I mean, with Cub, I thought it was a solid debut. It ended up sneaking into my year-end list, but around like the 40s mark, I think, 40s or 30s. So heading into this one, I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I have ended up loving it. And I think that debut, it still felt like a Jacob Slater solo project. Whereas this one, it almost feels like a second debut record. This time, introducing themselves as a proper band rather than, a front man and three others. There's a real togetherness, I think, from the songcraft this time. And I'll say I don't think it's a perfect project by any stretch. I think the title track and opener, Midas, is okay, but a bit generic. It's probably my least favourite song on here by some distance. Girl in the back end as well, I think feels slightly like filler. But as for everything else, I absolutely adore it. I don't know what it is. It's probably the 90s rock sound they have going on, but it awakens this real like nostalgic and quite emotional connection to the songs. Like, I mean, you touched on it earlier, Andrew, I think when talking about Fontaines. They sound like songs that you've known your whole life. It's got that real timeless feel to it. And it's a hard one to explain, but the more I spin this, and out of the five, I find it is the one that I find myself going back to the most at the moment. I just get this strangely deep tie to the songs here. That run of Emily, Silver, and Arizona, I think, is just superb. Probably some of my favorite straight rock songs of this nature that I've heard in a long time. Superman. I know you're not a fan of it, Kiley, but I love Jacob's vocal work in the back half of that song. I think we're right at that end moment when it takes flight. For me, it's just a real like goosebump moment. His vocals on that song, July. I mentioned this to you guys. Once I get over how much the guitars remind me of My Hero by Foo Fighters, I am suddenly on board with that one. Like, I have that moment where I want to sing "There Goes My Hero" instead of "I'm Ready to Die." It's like the same.
Bit cheerier.
Yeah, that's it. But once I get over that one, I'm on board with that song. And then the big highlight for me is the 9-minute closing track, Aeroplane, which it's just this beautifully laid back, minimal arrangement. Again, just Jacob's like stirring vocals on there, heartfelt lyrics. And then it just, it's like an awesome like bunch of riffs at the end to kind of bring it to a climax, but at the same time, like, it's quite understated in that moment. And I just think the way that some of these songs are put together, it's like restrained at the right times and full on at the right times. And yeah, I just think it's just outstanding. But yeah, Aeroplane, I appreciate it might be too long for some, but for me, I could listen to it on a loop all day. In some ways, it's not long enough. So this was the big surprise for me this month, along with the others, some of the others anyway. And I think we touched on it with, Fontaine's at the top. That it's almost actually, I mean, I think I enjoyed the Wunderhorse record partly because I got caught up in the Oasis reunion kind of hype. I'm not sure if like that's kind of it's come along at the right time, but when Fontaine's made those comments, I kind of thought, it is almost quite sad that the Oasis reunion is happening now, because I think it has taken like the attention away of, if you think of the potential audience for this record and the Fontaine's record, it has taken away their attention somewhat. And we're obviously going through this phase where nostalgic acts are the ones that sell. Fontaine's obviously made their feelings clear with their comments, but imagine the guys in Wunderhorse are feeling the same way. And it is what it is. But for me, I'm with you guys where I'd love to see more music fans celebrate like the new, because if we spend so much money invested in the old Oasis, we may just miss out on the next Oasis coming along. So big fan of this record, and I can't wait to see what Wunderhorse do from here.
Kiley, how did you feel about Midas?
It's grown on me. I was a huge fan of Cub, the debut. Reviewed it on the newsletter when it came out, and I thought it was just such a good story how his previous band had dissolved and he was in this bad place and turned things around, and Cub was the other side of that, and really, really worth celebrating. So I was really excited that Karl picked this one as well. But I've got a lot of the same notes without liking it quite as much. I think Emily, Silver, and Arizona being, being over here, I don't always know what's a single. And then I look at it and like right now, Arizona is a single. It's the most streamed song. It makes sense to me because I've never talked to someone here that knows about Wunderhorse. So I love that. And then I love July as well, when it really just unleashes, especially as I said in the group chat, Snoozer Man, like Superman, just that song does not do it for me. And then Karl, I'm with you as well. If it's a surprise or not, I love Aeroplane. I think it's a great finish to this album. When I'm also with you on Midas being like such a, I don't know, it's a weak opener to me that I don't know how many times I started this and would listen to Midas and then would get into Rain and just be like, maybe I'm not in the right headset for this at the moment, headspace. But yeah, I think, it might just be, I think it's a little bit of a cultural difference as much as I was into Britpop and that kind of thing back in the day. There is nostalgia to it. But for me, like it's a lot of it. This album just kind of gets jumbled in with a lot of what's going on in British music at the moment. And there's that. And then this 90s sound, there's been so much of it over the last couple of years and people doing some really great things with it it's like we're talking about all the electronic albums that are coming out right now, and it's just feast. I feel it for me. It's just like it's a step below that, and yeah, some really solid highlights. But as a cohesive thing, yeah, I don't find myself reaching for this record as much as I want to. That being said, I hope there's a third record, and would like to see where he goes from here. But yeah, it just might be a cultural thing. Like I have read and heard zero about this record outside of us picking it for the podcast. So yeah, I don't know. And to go back, what we said a few times here, it's just coming down to this month being so stacked that I think if this would have come out, in June or July, I might have been happier with it. So true highlights, but it's a pass for me at the moment.
Yeah, bit of a journey with this one. I think I mentioned to you, Karl, like first couple of listens, I really wasn't sold on it. And then I was listening one night, I think kind of whilst I was doing some work, and I was like, oh, here we go. It just kind of like, I don't know, I was clearly in the right place for it at that point.
Midas had passed.
Well.
Midas.
So do you want to hear my favourite tracks?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Midas,
Superman,
and Girl. So I was listening to your review. I was listening to your review, and I was thinking, I feel a very opposite kind of review on this album. They were my two favourites. Like I found Midas just instantly catchy, and sometimes you can either like or dislike it when it's like that. Girl, just like a cheery indie tune. Nice little sort of pop moments. So they were the ones which stood out most to me. Other ones which I liked the most on this record, I mean, Rain I liked for its tight claustrophobic sounds. Silver, very interesting lyrics, and just enjoyable indie track really. July is just the one which has kind of been going in my head actually the whole time we've been talking about this, and I just love that. I don't know, it's almost what do you call it, the Lankum style, just bleak start to that song with this kind of drone-like guitar, and then it just sort of goes in. I mean, the lyrics are very bleak as well, but there's something about it which like just kind of absorbs you. And then Cathedrals, what I really quite enjoy, but my notes here are that he kind of sounds like Chris Martin on this song. And yet it's like Chris Martin doing shoegaze. And so I have here that
he wishes.
Rockier version. Unlikely. But it's like a rockier version of Yellow was my notes there. So there we go. As for the rest, thought they maybe didn't sort of rise up as highly as where I felt those others did. And Aeroplane kind of, you guys really like that one. That one for me just didn't resonate. It feels like them trying to do Red House Painters, I suppose. It's similar to some of those kind of like slowcore kind of songs. I suppose it's got a country twang as well, but just got here, doesn't need to be so long. So, which is a fairly recurring theme in my notes on music. So it was one which, glad I had the opportunity not to just listen to it in one or two goes, because on those first couple of goes, I was thinking I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I think the more you listen to it, the more it kind of like sucks its tentacles sort of into you and stuff, and like, and then you find those songs which really grab you. But some of those sort of still remained on a point where it wasn't at a level which stood out, with some of those tracks. So there's definitely something about them. I actually quite liked the more kind of, despite my choices as favourites, the general feel where it was more dark or kind of dirty, I suppose even. That was where they kind of differentiate themselves from maybe like your indie bands of like the early 2000s. I see it more as an early 2000s kind of indie band album than maybe the 90s. But But yeah, I mean, just another really, really good one in the end, like I say, where I got to, and yeah, just completes 5 albums, which I've thoroughly enjoyed.